I'm talking today about the control panel application that you see in front of you. Control panel is our SDK sample or our .NET application that we use to communicate with the BV1000 as a tool. We also provide the source as a sample so you can see how to communicate with the BV1000. The protocol that the control panel uses is our retail protocol, which is typically used by a kiosk to communicate with the reader, the BV1000, over serial or Ethernet. So the first screen on the control panel is the communication screen, and here you'll see you've got a list. When you first start the application, it enumerates the control or the COM ports that are available on your PC. I happen to have a BV1000 connected to COM24 on my PC, and if I click connect, you'll see that the communication begins with a status request to the BV1000 and a response. And you notice this happens over and over and over again every 2 seconds as defined by this interval. And this is a typical communication pattern that we use to maintain status of the reader, and that the kiosk is always up to date with what the reader is doing. So you notice these bytes come back. Each one of these indicates various statuses. The major ones are highlighted on the status flags here below. You can see the ones coming back right now that says our host is available. So some of our payment applications keep track of whether or not the host is available over the internet. The configuration tab, there's a number of non-volatile configuration options in the BV1000, and this list does grow over time. We separate them by tags. You notice I just clicked get config. And all of these options they're read on boot, but they define how the BV1000 behaves. So we could set, for instance, the IP address of the Ethernet port. We can set the banking port, the banking IP address, the communication protocol. In some applications, we've got our merchant number, our transaction key. We've got the GPS information or GPRS information. We also have the DNS 1 and 2. So if we're using a static IP, we have to set a static DNS. The banking URL is here. The host static port, so this happens to be the Apriva application, which will monitor the Apriva gateway to make sure they're up. And this is the port. So the host static port and frequency are how often we'll check to see. So it's every 60 seconds we'll reach out on this port to make sure Apriva is up. We also have syslog. So this is like a standard syslog, Unix syslog service, where we can push all of the syslog data of the terminal to a syslog server. Disable full data outcome just reduces the amount of information we store after a sale. It speeds up the process a little bit. Enable early TLS. This will, in the process of capturing a card, will open that TLS right away so that we can begin the TLS work while the user is interfacing with the reader, either putting their PIN number in or just inserting their card. So it ends up making the flow work a little bit quicker. Quick chip is EMV quick chip. Not all applications support it, so you just put a 1 in there when it's enabled. Null or blank means it's disabled. You notice also in here we have the terminal peripheral configuration string, and this long string tells the reader which ports are bound, or which applications are bound to which port. We'll talk about that on the next tab. Before we leave this tab, typically one of the things that you want to do when you're testing an Ethernet configuration is make sure that your Ethernet configuration is good. So here you can see I'm pinging Google's DNS. Now this is the ping from the reader. So I'm now telling the reader to go out and ping. And you'll see link up, yes. So this is good for debugging. That means I've got a link light on my Ethernet port. I'm DHCPing because I've got no IP defined here. And you see my netmask, my gateway, my DNS, and of course ping receive 5 out of 5 is good. So if you see 0 out of 5, that means you're not getting out to the internet. And of course you need to do your LAN debugging to make sure that the reader has access to the internet.